Hey there, friend. Have you ever prayed with all your heart and then watched everything in your life fall apart? If so, you're not alone. In today's story, I want to take you on a personal journey, raw, honest, and full of questions we've all wrestled with. Maybe you're in that storm right now. Stay with me because sometimes the breaking comes just before the breakthrough. I used to think that prayer would bring peace immediately. That when I knelt down, raised my hands, and said, "Lord, I can't go on, I need you," all the burdens would vanish. But I was wrong. My name is Elias. I'm a 35-year-old engineer living a fairly average life, not extraordinary, but not terrible either. I had a stable job, a gentle wife, and 2 adorable kids. But inside, there was a persistent emptiness I couldn't explain. A silent weariness, as if I were living without a soul. I couldn't fully describe it, only that each morning I woke up, it felt like I was putting on a mask. I worked, I smiled, I talked to my wife and kids, but inside I was hollow. And then everything started falling apart. I remember that night clearly. It was raining heavily. I was sitting alone in my car after work, too exhausted to go inside. I had been driving aimlessly for over 2 hours with no destination. Streetlights shimmered through the rain-smeared windshield, and I just sat there, motionless. Suddenly, I broke down in tears. Uncontrollably. I didn't even know what I was crying for, my job, my family, or the feeling of being lost for far too long. In that desperation, I whispered, "If you're real, please help me." I had never prayed so sincerely before. I was raised in a half-hearted Catholic home. We attended church on Christmas and Easter, but no one really lived by faith. Back then, I had no idea I was stepping into a spiritual battle. I thought, I just did something holy. Surely God will help. But 3 days later, I was laid off. No warning. The company downsized and I was among the first to go. My wife, Laura, didn't say much. She just looked at me with eyes full of sadness and disappointment. "Did you do something wrong?" she asked quietly. I shook my head and tried to smile. But inside, I was trembling. I had prayed, and what I got in return was job loss. Less than a week later, my mother suddenly fell seriously ill. The doctor said it was late-stage cancer. I was stunned. She had been perfectly healthy just months ago, still walking every morning, still cooking for my kids every weekend. And now, she lay motionless in a hospital bed, her eyes cloudy, as if she had carried the weight of a lifetime. I began staying up late to pray every night. No longer were they vague murmurs, but desperate, tear-filled pleas. "God, please don't let my mother go. I haven't even done anything to honor her yet." But her condition worsened every day. I began to wonder, did I do something wrong? Or is God just not listening? One night, while Laura was asleep, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. I whispered to myself, "Lord, are you really there? Why does everything get worse after I pray?" I remembered a passage from the Bible, Exodus, the story of the Israelites. They cried out to God in their suffering, and God sent Moses. But instead of freedom, life got worse. Pharaoh made them work harder. They prayed, and they were beaten. They hoped, and they were crushed. I was shaken. Could it be that God was shaking everything up to prepare something greater? One day, I ran into Daniel, a former friend from church. I met him at a small coffee shop while trying to escape the noise of the world. "Elias," he said, "you look like you've lost weight." I gave a bitter smile. "I lost my job. My mom is sick." I prayed, and everything fell apart. He nodded slowly. Prayer is stepping into battle. When you pray, heaven moves, but so does hell. You're not being punished, you're being refined through fire. I was stunned. No one had ever said that to me before. He continued, "God doesn't stir things up to punish us. He does it to prepare us." Just like the Israelites, what looked like things getting worse was actually the start of God breaking their chains. I walked out of the coffee shop that day with my mind spinning, but in my heart, I felt a flicker of light. My mother passed away the following month. I cried like a child at the funeral. But even in that darkest moment, something strange happened. I no longer felt angry at God. I felt His presence. gentle, like a breeze in the middle of a storm. Lara held my hand at the graveside and whispered, "You seem stronger now." I realized the pain hadn't killed me, it changed me. 3 months later, I was offered a position as a project director at a company, a job far better than my previous one. I hadn't even applied. They found me through an old colleague. Strangely enough, the company was working on a housing project for low-income families, something my mom had always dreamed of supporting. One day, I drove past my old church. I pulled over and sat in the last pew. I prayed, "Thank you, God, for not answering my prayer the way I wanted." I realized, God is not a genie who grants wishes. He's the chain breaker, but sometimes, those chains are the things we thought were stable. I started reading the Bible every morning. I taught my kids to pray, not to get something, but to know who walks beside them. One night, my son asked, "Dad, were you scared when you lost your job?" I smiled and pulled him into my arms. Of course, but I've learned that when things get worse after you pray, it might be because victory is near. Now, I don't pray to change my circumstances. I pray to change myself. I understand now, God doesn't let things fall apart to punish me. He does it to wake me from the illusion of comfort. And every storm is a sign that the promised land is near. I walked through sorrow and I realized, when everything gets worse after you pray, you may be closer to a miracle than you think. If this story spoke to you, even just a little, I'd be so grateful if you gave it a like. It helps this message reach someone who might need it right now. And if you're walking through a storm, remember, you're not forgotten. God is still working, even in the silence. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay strong, keep praying, and keep believing. If you'd like more stories like this, real, faith-filled, and honest, I'd love to invite you to subscribe. No pressure, just a simple way to stay connected. I share new reflections regularly, and I'd be honored to walk this journey of faith with you.